What's going on, Rodeo Universe? This is Hog Trail, aka the Goat, back for the first time in a long time with another Get Good. Now, if you are involved in the Raw Deal Discord, which if you're listening to this, watching this, then I'm sure that you are, you know that we have just started the BWO Raw Deal Roulette Wheel. Every round, each person gets 3 superstars chosen at random, and that's who you have to use in that next round. But you also know that your opponent will be using one of 3 people. So it helps maybe guide you or dissuade you from using certain people. I think it's a great idea. Anyway, I figured it'd be a good idea to each round walk you guys through my thought process of who I'm going to use. So, round 1, I got the choice of Carlito and Primo Cologne, Harlem Heat, or DDP. And my opponent is either going to use the Rhodes Brothers, AJ Lee, or the Street Profits. So I thought about my choices. Carlito and Primo basically get a free move, free fortitude, essentially free. And then they have some pretty okay specifics, some pretty good stuff. One of their backstages is really good, but they have a couple good cards. Harlem Heat is very simple. All your strikes are multi. And there's a lot of different ways you can go with strikes. You can go volley, you can go foreign objects, you can go puncher's chance, which I love. You guys know that I love that. Even dynamic, technical. And then DDP is kind of, he's not a necessarily easy deck to build. He loves fan favorite cards. His 360 clothesline maneuvers can only be reversed by uniques, which is really fun. He gets give and take at the start of the game. And then I thought about what my opponent's choices do. And I thought, what do they do that no matter who I build, I could help stop? And I thought, well, Street Profits and AJ Lee both get high flying style, so that lends themselves to perhaps high risk decks. The Rhodes Brothers have a couple specific high risks, but they don't necessarily lean into high risks, or they're not really specifically geared that way. AJ Lee is probably the strongest of those 3. Street Profits are also very good. Rhodes Brothers are good too, but compared to the other 2, I think they fall a little bit short. So I would anticipate running into AJ Lee or the Street Profits. So ultimately, I decided on using Carlito and Primo Cologne. As you can see, I've loaded up my heel shell, which, as you know, we will edit as we go. Hold the phone might get cut, but you know what? Maybe we'll keep it this time. Anyway, let's go over Carlito and Primo. 0 hand size and a 3 value. Tag team superstar ability. Once per game, when your played maneuver is unsuccessful, you may overturn number +5 cards and put that maneuver in your ring instead, where number is equal to the damage of the maneuver. You can pack high flying style and Carlito cards. You cannot pack any title belt except the tag team title belts. All right, so like I said, they basically get a maneuver for free, regardless of if opponent reverses it or not. Knowing that, and knowing where I think I'm going to go with this deck, that could be very powerful. The first unified champions. Backstage card. Your title belts can be played during any pre-match phase. When you have a title belt in your ring and you use your ability, your opponent's reversals to that card deal no damage, and after overturning, put 1 non-unique maneuver from your ring side into your hand. During your turn, you may hide this card and then shuffle up to number cards from your ring side into your arsenal, where number is the combined total of all players' superstar values. That's a pretty good card. It makes the cost of your ability hurt much less, literally, because opponent's reversal won't do damage. But also, let's say you have, the 2 tag team title belts in your ring. That brings you up to a 5 superstar value. As long as your opponent doesn't product endorsements you, that's at least 5 cards you're going to shuffle in. So knowing my opponent, his superstar values, Street Profits have 2, the Rhodes Brothers have 3, and AJ Lee has 3. So I probably won't be product endorsementing my opponent. So that might be 8 cards just free recovery that I get, which in a pinch can really help. Second generation Caribbean Cool pre-match event. Cannot be blanked. Your interest of fairness cards are blank. Before the draw segment of the first turn of the game, draw 6 cards and put 2 cards from your hand on the bottom of your arsenal. When you are Carlito, blah, 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 not relevant. When you are a tag team and keeping your Caribbean Cool is in your ring, you can use your ability twice per game. So we'll get to that other card in a second, but that can be pretty helpful too. If your opponent is red walling you and all you have is the move that you threw with your ability the first time, if somehow you're keeping your Caribbean Cool back in your ring, then maybe you can get more fortitude and you can keep going. That's not cool. Mid-match reversal special. When you are Carlito, blah, blah, blah. Reverse any non-maneuver card and draw 1 card. During your turn, you may remove this card from the game and then reveal 1 backstage card. When you are Carlito, this effect cannot be reversed. So, if this is in our ring, we can ace it to reveal the first unified champions again, and then get another free shuffle. Keeping your Caribbean Cool, 10 fortitude. As an action, cannot be reversed by a card with completely in the text. Put up to 2 cards from your ringside into your hand. Shuffle cards from your ringside into your arsenal up to the number of maneuvers in your opponent's ring plus 2. Reverse any hybrid maneuver. When this card is in your ring, when you use your ability, you may choose to reduce the number of cards by 2. So a couple things going on. Cannot be reversed by cards with completely in the text is much better than ignore completely in your opponent's reversals, because now they can't even use get the F out or once is enough to reverse this card. And it gives you more recovery, which, as we've seen, they already have a fair amount. Reverse any hybrid maneuver is always good. A lot of trademark finishers and other superstar specifics are hybrid. And remember, this card lets you use your ability a second time when keeping your Caribbean Cools in your ring. And keeping your Caribbean Cool lets you overturn 2 fewer cards. So it can all be pretty helpful. Primo's Flying Body Press, trademark finisher, high risk, multi. 30 fortitude, 20 damage, 1 stun. Can only be played after a successfully played maneuver, and this card is minus 5 damage. This card is plus 3 damage and plus 1 stun value for each trademark finisher in your ring. And as we see when we look over Carlito's cards, they have access to a number of specific trademark finishers. Primo makes the save, backstage area. When this card is hidden and your opponent successfully plays a card that would remove a D1 or greater card from your ring, you may reveal this card and your card is not removed from your ring. So this card is very simple but very effective. If your opponent has some kind of ring removal, reveal this and that card does not get removed. Simple but very effective. All right, here's where they get really interesting. Primo, a shining star. Backstage area. When your maneuver is unsuccessful, draw up to 2 cards and shuffle 1 random card from your ringside into your arsenal. When you have lower fortitude, you may also shuffle 1 non-reversal card into your arsenal. Your first superstar specific action each turn can only be reversed by unique cards. During your turn, you may hide this card and then reveal up to 3 other backstage cards. Wow, this card really improves them. So first of all, let's go by this one by one. When your maneuver is unsuccessful, draw up to 2 cards, shuffle 1 random card, and when you have lower, you can shuffle a non-reversal card. So that effect can take place before you use your ability. So your maneuver is unsuccessful. Let's say you play, kick, and opponent plays Revolution of the Mind. Now they have 1 fortitude, you have 0. So now you can draw 2 cards, shuffle a random card from your X pile into your arsenal if you have one, and shuffle a non-reversal Shuffle a non-reversal card into your arsenal. And then you can use your ability to overturn the damage of the kick +5 and put the kick into your ring. So not only do you get the extra draw, you get a couple recovery, but then you get to use your ability to do this, and we already saw the other effects that happens when you use your ability. Your first superstar-specific action each turn can only be reversed by uniques. Well, we've looked at keeping your Caribbean cool, so that adds another pretty heavy restriction onto that. But the next card we look at will make it even better, and then we'll look at Carlito's cards as well. And during your turn, you can hide this card and reveal up to 3 other backstage cards. So now you can reveal this card again and get even more recovery. Oh, you can also do it with 10th anniversary. Carlito has another backstage card that's very good. Even if you want to do 5th anniversary again, you can do that. It really opens up a lot for you. Really excellent card. The Bad Apples, 4 Fortitude, mid-match reversal, non-unique maneuver. Arsenal search, spit at opponent. Draw up to 2 cards, and your opponent puts 2 random cards from his hand on the bottom of his arsenal. Your spit at opponent is superstar specific. When you overturn I know cool and you're not cool, you can put that card into your ring and it is permanent. So we'll look at that card in a second, but let's focus on the first effect. Arsenal search, spit at opponent. Spit at opponent's 4 Fortitude heal action. You discard 1, opponent discards 4. Also draw 2 cards. Also opponent buries 2 random hand cards. And spit at opponent is superstar specific. Oh, we do something with superstar specifics, remember? Superstar specifics, the first one each turn can only be reversed by unique cards. Very interesting. All right, now let's look at Carlito's cards, because he's got some good stuff too. I know cool, you're not cool, the card that card just referenced. As a reversal, when overturned, reverse any non-unique maneuver and end your opponent's turn. When this card's in your ring, your cards titled Spitted Opponent are multi. Now this card is cheater, so that would cut you off from fan favorite builds, but that's okay. It's a multi-action, 0 Fortitude, 0 damage. So now, Spitted Opponent will be multi and can only be reversed by uniques when this card's in your ring. And when this card's overturned in reverses, you can just put it into your ring and it's permanent. Pretty good. Carlito's Apple. Here's the other backstage card I was talking about. During your turn, you may hide this card and then look at your opponent's hand, choose 1 card, and he puts that card on the bottom of his arsenal. This card is very, very good. It's been good ever since Carlito came out with No Way Out. It basically just kills a card in your opponent's hand. And sometimes they only have 1 good card in their hand. So this can really help you. And remember, the Colognes generally won't have a problem getting started because of their ability. So you could even save this card for later in the game for a key moment. Let's say you want to use an activated card effect. You can hide this and kill their Don't Try This at Home, which might be in their hand. Very good stuff. Carlito's Cabana, pre-match event. The number of pre-match cards you may have in your ring is increased by 1. When this card's in your ring area during your turn, you can put this card into your ringside pile and then search your arsenal for 1 non-unique maneuver card, reveal it to your opponent, put it in your hand, and shuffle. And when this card is in your ringside pile during your turn, you may remove this card from the game and shuffle up to 4 cards from your ring pile into your arsenal. So the bottom effect is basically free. There's not anything that they can really do about it unless they have, Hell in a Cell out. RFG that card, shuffle in 4. Great. It's free. It gives you +1 pre-match and lets you ace it to go search for non-unique maneuver. All good stuff. I spit in the face of 6 Fortitude action shared with Randy Orton. Put up to 3 cards from your hand on the bottom of your arsenal, then put that many cards from your opponent's ring area into his ringside pile. This card is really good. Anytime you get to have ring removal, especially if it's specific, especially if it's protected by their backstage, it's really, really powerful. Ring removal is arguably the most powerful effect in the game. People who don't want to be cool. 8 fortitude action cannot be reversed when I spit in the face of is in your ring. Put any number of cards from your hand on top of your arsenal and then shuffle up to double that many cards from your ring's pile into your hand. We already talked about the recovery they had. And with their Shining Star backstage, their hand can really blow up pretty quickly. So, more recovery. Carlito's Way DDT, trademark finisher / action. It's 20 fortitude, 20 damage. As an action, this card is minus 20. Shuffle this card and 1 card from your ring's pile into your arsenal. Cheap trademark finishers are always welcome. It has a good effect as an action. And the fortitude and the damage are both 20, so it's very good. Carlito's Cool Caribbean Neckbreaker. It's a multi-grapple, 10 fortitude, 10 damage. When this card is in your ringside pile during your turn, you may discard 3 cards and put this card into your hand. Pretty self-explanatory. It's not amazing, but it's good enough. We'll probably pack it, but we don't have to, depending on where we go with the deck. The Backstabber, another trademark finisher, 35 fortitude, 20 damage. It's also an action, 2 stun value. As a maneuver, draw 1 card. As an action, this card is minus 30 fortitude. Put this card and up to 1 card from your rings pile and up to 1 card that has been removed from the game on the bottom of your arsenal. This card is a really good action. Let's say you have Divine Intervention in your RFG. You can play this card and get it back. Or Revolution of the Mind, for example. Play this card and get it back. Very good stuff. And it's an action, so it can only be reversed by uniques. Really excellent. And then I think we already went over all of these ones. So yeah, we're going to go with Carlito and Primo. So we are going to add the cards to our shell, which is already made. Cabana will go in the pre-match. This card is really good. This card is also really good. You're going to hear me say that a lot because they got some good cards. The Neckbreaker. Carlito and Primo will be the superstar. Unified Tag Team Champions. Thank you. Second generation Caribbean Cool. That's not cool. Keeping your Caribbean Cool. Primo's Flying Body Press. Primo makes the save. We'll put that here because it doesn't make sense to reveal it at the start of the game. Primo a Shining Star. Great card. And the Bad Apples. All right, so first things first, they're a tag team. So that means we have to cut Here Comes the Cavalry. I'm not sure we need Candace with all the recovery that we are projected to have. I'll leave it there for now, but that's a pretty easy cut if we have to. Everything else looks like it belongs. Like I said, hold the phone's always on the bubble, but I like to keep it there for now. All right, so let's look at Superstar logo equals nothing. And let's do card text contains tag team. So we want to look for stuff that we can pack because we're a tag team. Really not much of the classic cards are that great. There is one that we'll come back to, but total teamwork can only be packed by a tag team except them. We are a tag team superstar. So total teamwork is a really good card. We will add that. Cavalry, we cannot pack. So normally I'd pack handicap match. However, knowing that my opponent could either be the Street Profits or the Rhodes Brothers, and I might not be able to play a handicap match, I'm not going to pack it. But the good thing is because of this, I can play title belts during any pre-match phase. So my first pre-match during my event phase could be the champ is here, which basically does the best part of handicap match, which is the +2 pre and the +2 mid. So normally I would be packing handicap match, but I can't here. Classic teamwork can only be packed by the People's Team, the Dangerous Alliance, or any superstar indicates you are a tag team or accept the tag team title belts. Accept the tag team title belts. So yet another mid-match reversal, which is really good. So classic teamwork. Thank you very much. All right. Anything else catch our eyes? Classic distraction is just not worth it. It's too high fortitude cost for what it does, unfortunately. Little She Devil is a good card. I'd use this one if I was going to pack it. We'll see. It's a good plunge card, but we'll see. It's another card that, in theory, you want to pack, but sometimes deck space gets tight. We're not face. All right, here are the tag team belts. So we might, I think it might behoove us to use the throwback. These packed by tag team. Before the first draw, Simon choose one. Put 2 cards ring spot on the bottom, or draw 3 and bury 2. I think I might want the throwback Raw and SmackDown tag team title belts. They each give you +1 superstar value. They both give you +1 hand. This one makes one of them free when you have both in your ring. And this one makes your opponent choose 1 less card from I'm going to break you or friends of an underdog, which I'm not too concerned with, but it's still pretty good. So we're going to add these right now. And we can play them during any phase, so I'm going to put them up top to remind myself that. All right. Now let's look for some referenced cards. High Flying Style. They can pack High Flying Style, and High Flying Style is pretty good. High Flying Style. Can only be packed by a bunch of people. Your strike maneuvers with Rana in the title are now high risks, and your opponent's non-unique reversals to your high risk deal no damage. Your from the top rope and from the middle turnbuckle cannot be reversed. So I'll add this card for now. We might not lean into high risks, but we'll see how the deck goes. And because I have High Flying Style, I'm going to look for other cards with High Flying Style in the text because I know there are some. Perfectly Executed Tope is a good card, so we're going to try to add that. But as you can see, the mid-match is getting pretty tight. Backflip. 0 Fortitude Reversal Special can only be played when you are Carlito or Daniel Bryan or when High Flying Style is in your ring. When played from hand, reverse any non-unique maneuver and your opponent puts the card into his hand. When this card's in your ring, your Hurricanrana are +1 stun value and can only be reversed from hand and arsenal. I don't love this card. It's fine, but I don't love it. However, Cruiserweight style action can only be you reveal this card when High Flying Style is put in your ring. It is superstar specific, and your opponent cannot prevent you from playing from the top rope or from the middle turnbuckle, or play restricted use in this area in response to those cards, and they are considered unique for Old School Cage Match and antics for Not in My Broadcast. Your non-throwback Japanese arm drag is -6 fortitude and a high risk. And when your fortitude is 3 or less, it is unique and cannot be reversed from backlash. During your turn, when you have lower fortitude and you overturn backflip, you can put that card into your ring and end their turn. So we might as well pack this card because it's in the backstage. And backflip becomes a little bit better. I'll add it for now, but we are not certain it will stay. Then Tope Suicida is when we are NXT Allegiance, which we are not going to do. All right, let's see. What other cards do we reference? We already got the tag belts. Nothing there, nothing there. Anything in here? There's one that I know we're going to do. Spit at opponent. So let's go get spit. 4 fortitude heal action. You must discard 1 card, and your opponent discards 4 cards. Very powerful. We are adding 3 immediately. The card's so good, and it's been one of the best cards in the game ever since the very first set. Great card. Also, the most recent print of this isn't on Octagon, but essentially you can only play it when you have 2 cards in your hand. So you have to be able to discard the 1 card. I don't think any other thing is referenced. You can't pack Interest of Fairness. That's okay. Yeah. Spirit opponent. All right. So now let's get into what we want to do with this deck. So when I'm a superstar who can get essentially free fortitude, guaranteed fortitude at least, my mind goes a couple different ways. I think of what are the most difficult builds to get started, but once they get started, they can be very powerful. I consider volley one of these types. With volley, you're essentially throwing generally vanilla strikes, albeit sometimes high damage. But to start at volley, you just kind of need to luck into hitting a move. These guys can get around that because they can start with a bunch of fortitude early if they're willing to overturn some cards. The other thing I think about is backed by SmackDown General Manager Vicky Guerrero. So let's look at that card first. It is a pre-match event at SmackDown. Cannot be packed by a bunch of people. Your opponent cannot play non-superstar specific, non-D0 reversals, except manager interferes, or overshot your mark to your first non-superstar specific SmackDown non-Fortitude 0 maneuver each turn. Your next pre-match SmackDown card gains the text your pre-match capacity is +1. This is one of the most powerful cards in the game. It is prone to being blanked, so you have to be aware of that. But it is tremendous. It's a play restriction, so cards like Don't Be a Douchebag or Carlito Says That's Not Cool cannot be played. Well, Carlito says can be played technically, but I don't think any SmackDown card has a printed reversal restriction that Carlito can reverse. So no douchebag on these because they're not reversal restrictions. You also don't have to worry about overshot your mark. And as we'll see in a minute, there's a bunch of SmackDown high risks that we could potentially pack. And it's kind of free. It makes your next SmackDown pre-match card free. It's really a great card. And the main reason I think about this, we'll add that. If we look at SmackDown cards, there's one in particular that I want to focus on. Let's find it. Face Stretch. Submission, 8 fortitude, 8 damage. When your fortitude is 7 fortitude or less, this card is -8 fortitude and -8 damage. When successfully played, you may put 1 face card from your ring area into your hand. So we're not face, so that line of text isn't relevant. However, the first line, when your fortitude rating is 7 or less, this card is -8 fortitude and -8 damage. So that does a couple things. First of all, it makes it a 0 fortitude, 0 damage submission. Backed by Vicky does not protect 0 fortitude maneuvers. But if it's 0 damage and it's reversed from my opponent, if it's unsuccessful, I can overturn 0 +5 to put that maneuver into my ring. So at the very minimal cost of overturning 5 cards, I can start the game with 8 fortitude. That is a really great advantage. Starting the game with 8 fortitude is really all you need to get started in this game. It's more than enough. It puts you in range for a lot of really good cards. It puts you right into that mid-level. So this face stretch is going to be the crux. It's going to be the way we get started. And then once you have the 8 fortitude, you can start playing backed by Vicky protected face stretch. All right, so we're at 45 cards. We have 15 cards to work with before we have to make some cuts. So let's go back and look at some SmackDown cards. Like I said, there's a number of high risks we could pack. I don't think we'll pack a lot of them, but there's at least 2 that I think we will. Diving Takedown is a fun card. If we have the room, we'll add 1, maybe 2. But I just don't think it's going to make the cut. Roll Up is one that I do want to look at. 18 Fortitude, 2 damage, SmackDown. As a maneuver, can only be played after a successfully played 4 damage or greater maneuver. That is 4. I know it doesn't look great, but that is a 4. As a reversal, reverse back body drop. Okay, that'll never happen. When successfully played, if your fortitude rating is at least 20 fortitude greater than your opponent's fortitude rating, or if you have at least 5 cards more in your hand than your opponent, you win the game via pinfall victory. I think 1 roll up is a must pack for pretty much any backed by Vicky deck. You never know when you'll catch your opponent off guard. Both of those are attainable, the 20 fortitude plus, because remember, we start with 8 fortitude. So depending on what your opponent does, you can red wall them and throwing protected Vicky moves, you could get up to 20 fortitude greater than them pretty quickly. But also we have a lot of discard because we have 3 spitted opponents that are very difficult to reverse. So the likelihood of us having 5 or more cards in our hand is pretty high. Let's keep looking at some of these SmackDown cards. The early ones aren't great, I'll be totally honest. But Premier SmackDown Superstar is one that we're going to want. Can only be played when your value is 3 or greater. When this card's in your ring area, when you successfully play a card with a SmackDown logo, you may draw a card, and then there's an ace that lets you discard a SmackDown card and then bury a ringside card. So, this effect works during the pre-match, including when you play it. So, depending on how many SmackDown cards we get in a pre-match, that's extra cards that we're going to add to our hand. And remember, we have a printed 0. So we're going to want a bunch of cards in our opening hand because we start with none. Hard Being This Original is a card that I love, but it's not going to be in this deck. Suicide Lariat is one I consider. It's not the easiest card to hit because it has to be played after a successful maneuver. So I think for now we will leave it off. Atomic Knee Drop, on the other hand, is a card that is very difficult to reverse. So this makes me want to add even a 1 of From the Top Rope to be able to get it. So for now, I don't want that in my backstage. I want that in my arsenal. Escape to the Side's a good card. I try to put it in my, did I do that again? What the heck? Come on, down there. Where was I? Escape to the Side's a good card. I try to put it in my SmackDown decks because when it's overturned, it reverses any strike or grapple. That's really good. So we're going to add that for now. If we have to cut it, we will, but I don't want to. Ban from Ringside is always a solid choice. And it's probably the card of choice to play after Backed by Vicky because it would make itself free. Diving Bulldog is a Backed by Vicky Guerrero staple. So I like to add 3. We could go down to 2 if we have to. A lot of SmackDown cards just aren't worth it. All right, here's one that I know Managed by Dawn Marie is a very underrated card. First of all, hand size +1, which, as we've already established, we need. When this card's in your ring area, during your turn, you can put this card into your ring side pile and then put one card with an activated card effect from your opponent's ring into his ring side. So that's pretty good. And remember, we have the apple in the backstage. So we can kill opponents don't try this at home on the opening turn if they have a really nasty ace in their ring. And one of my opponent's potential superstars is the Street Profits, and they love activated card effects. But even if I didn't know that, I would want this card in my deck. So we're for now, we're going to add Managed by Dawn Marie. Funaki's good, but I don't think we'll use it in this. Same with Head Scissors. Shamakul's good, but I don't think we'll use it. Running Clothesline's a good high damage maneuver. I'm not mad at two of those. Keylock, here's one I do love. It's a multi-submission, SmackDown, 7/4, 7 damage. This card's +3 damage when played by a tag team. Hey, we're a tag team. Plan B's decent. Backed by Teddy. Shuffle cards from Rink's pile into your arsenal equal to your superstar value plus the number of cheater cards in your ring, and your opponent overturns 3. Remember, we do have a number of recovery cards. Backed by Teddy's pretty good. Our value is probably going to be around 5, and we have other cheater cards. I'll add 1 just to remind myself. Bide my time. We're not going to bother with that one. Break you out, break you down, breaking rules, breaking ground. So this card was made active by one of the Shenanigans. It's a really good card. I'm not sure that we'll actually have the mid-match slots for it. I will put 1 out because, like I said, it's ring removal, and we love ring removal. Perfectly Executed Moonsault, not as good as I wish it was. It's better with Backed by Vicky. Can only be played for 6 damage or greater maneuver, or from the top rope, or from the middle turnbuckle. When it's played after one of those cards, it's +3 damage and multi. So that's good and bad, because multi with Backed by Vicky makes moves a little easier to reverse because of Get the F Out and Once Is Enough. They're both Fortitude 0. So I think I'll pass on this. We already have Tope. We're not using the SmackDown Allegiance, so we don't need those. We're not Good Time. We're not fan favorite, so we don't get one-on-one with The Undertaker. Savat Kick. Not worth it, in my opinion. Cruiserweight title, we cannot pack it. We cannot pack the SmackDown tag. But we can, but we already have the other ones. Big Show gets ringside announcer. It kills its showtime, but I'm not really worried about that. Can't pack that. Hardcore Holly's a good card. It's a sneaky decent card, but I just don't think we'll have the room for it. Can't pack any of those belts. So that's probably it. We have 3 cards to work with, so we're going to have to cut a couple cards. Right away, Candace, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to go. I don't think it'll be worth it to pack Backed by Teddy, to be fully honest. We have plenty of recovery that is essentially unstoppable. And I don't think Backflip will be good enough. So now we have 6 cards. So there's a couple things that I want to do, knowing that we start the game with 8 Fortitude. I want to look at Overshot Your Mark. 8 Fortitude, Reversal Special. Reverse any strike of 5 damage or greater, or any high risk, or any maneuver played after Irish Whip. End your opponent's turn. Number is equal to the reverse maneuver's damage. Wow. This card is a game changer. Your opponent plays, chair shot, 10 damage strike. You play that, they have to take 10 damage. Now there's a lot of cards, or not a lot of cards, but there's a few cards that stop reversal damage. But if we pack, let's say, Frankie takes Hollywood, and now they have to eat all that damage. So I'm going to add at least 2. And remember, my opponent might be the Street Profits, who play a lot of high risks. And my opponent might be AJ Lee, who can pack high flying style. And even the Rhodes brothers have a couple superstar specific high risks. So I'm going to put 3 in for now. I don't think I'll end up with 3. And then I also want to look at, from the top rope, the throwback version. 9 Fortitude setup action can only be played after a successfully played strike or grapple, or if you reverse a card from your hand or backlash on your opponent's turn. Search your arsenal for high risk, put it in your hand, shuffle. Your next card played this turn is a high risk. Ignore it can only be played. It's +5 damage and +2 stun value. So we have a number of high risks, but particularly that is to go get Atomic Knee Drop, which can only be reversed from Arsenal, and it's unique. So there's really not anything that stops it, other than a couple specifics, but I don't think anyone that he has will get that. We'd also get Roll Up if the circumstance is right. So now we have 2 cards. We could add another from the top rope, because we also have the Primo's Body Press. We also have this Neckbreaker hanging out, which I'm not convinced we need. I'm not convinced. In fact, I'm going to cut it. See? I want you guys to know that it's okay to cut superstar specific cards. It might hurt, but sometimes if it doesn't work exactly the way you want it to, you don't need it. One card that I also want to look at. Simply the Best. This is one of the best actions in the game. 8 Fortitude action. There's that number, 8 Fortitude again. Put up to number cards from your opponent's ring area into his ringside pile, where number is equal to the number of different non-trademark finisher maneuver types in your ring area. Remember, I already said ring removal is very powerful, and we have submission, strike, high risks, trademark finisher. We have a number of maneuver types. So Simply the Best. I'm going to put 3 in for now. That is overkill. Yes, I know. It puts us at 60, which is the cap. But if it hits and we get to kill cards in my opponent's ring, combined with this card that kills a card in my opponent's ring, combined with Managed by Dawn Marie, which can kill a card in my opponent's ring, combined with Break It Out, Break It Down, which can kill 2 cards in my opponent's ring, that could be really helpful for us and really harmful for my opponent. So let's see. 1 from the top row. I don't know. Every time you have just 1 card in your arsenal, it feels a little weird, but sometimes that's all you need. The rest of this looks pretty solid. Spin opponent, very good. Escape to the side, I love, especially with all that recovery. All of this looks pretty fine. Hey, look at that. We might keep Hold the Phone. Their specifics are pretty good, the ones that we have left. That might be our arsenal. I can't think of anything glaring that we might take out. If anything, I would maybe cut 1 Simply the Best for a second from the top rope, but we don't have to. Remember, there's only 2 real high risks that we're ever going to search for it. And we're going to have some okay draw power with the Backstage. So I think this is probably our arsenal. All right, so let's look at card type contains pre. So one that I referenced earlier was the Champ is here, the non-throwback version. Can only be played when you have a title bout in your ring. The maximum number of pre-match cards you have in your pre-match and mid-match cards you may have in your ring is increased by 2. So remember, we can play these belts during any phase. So the champ is here can be our very first event. Depending on who my opponent is, I might play it second just so I can get Premier SmackDown out before I get product endorsements. So I'm going to put it there. Let's count what we have. We're at 24 cards already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pre-match cards already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Did I count that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I did. All right, so we're going to have to cut one mid-match card already. And unfortunately, I think it might be the Road to Victory. It's a really good card. Actually, we might not need Dirty Low Blow, honestly. If I'm going to start with 8 Fortitude, do I really need Dirty Low Blow? That's very interesting. Well, there is another card, so I might end up cutting both Dirty Low Blow and Road to Victory. So for now, I'm going to cut Road to Victory. So let's see how many of these take up a slot. So 1, 2, however, one of these are free. So 1, 2, 3, doesn't count because the champ is here. Doesn't count because of Vicky. 4, 5, gives +1, so we're at 5, and then 6. So no show. And also no show puts the card back in. So I already mentioned Frank. So I think our pre-match is all set. Frankie Takes Hollywood's going to do pretty good stuff for us. However, now that I think about it, when I pack Frankie, I like to pack more pain reversals. So I might add a Spine Buster or 2. Because I've already got strikes and high risks covered. Spine Buster hits grapples and submissions. So let's look at Spine Buster Throwback. When played from hand, reverse any grappler submission. I think that's good to add 2 of. And it also gives us a grapple for Simply the Best. Now I have to cut 2 cards. It's not going to be Hold the Phone. I know what you're thinking. He's going to cut Hold the Phone, but I'm not going to. I mean, Primo's Flying Body Press is only okay. It's only okay. So I'm going to cut it. And it's also a high risk, which makes it a little easier to reverse. The rest of these are not going to get cut. Let's cut 1 card. Sometimes I'll cut a 3rd elbow to the face. I might, because we start with 8 Fortitude, so that gets us more room for other reversals. So I'll cut 1 elbow to the face. I love elbow to the face, so I don't love cutting it, but to make room for Spine Buster, I will. Anyway, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, and then no show goes away and brings in Frankie. So that's our 6 pre-match slots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there's a couple things going on that I don't love. So when I have Backed by Vicky, I often like to pack Find Out How to Fight from Finley because then my opponent can't use Old Switcheroo. However, there's really not anything to cut, which is unfortunate. I mean, Managed by Dawn Marie is probably the most cuttable card, but I don't want to. Come to think of it, I don't think I really need High Flying Style. I have a couple high risks, but they're already going to be Vicky protected, so I don't really have to worry about damage. I only have 1 from the top rope, and I already cut Backflip. So I'm going to cut High Flying Style, which means I have to cut Cruiserweight Style Action, which is okay. because at the end of the day, it's going to protect Back by Vicky. Plus, if my opponent does play product endorsements, I can play Find Out How to Fight, and then likely their next card was going to be Old School Psychology, which they won't be able to play with Finley. So the other card, sneaky card I like to pack when my opponent, when I have Back by Vicky, I mean, is Ref Got in the Way. Reverse any non-unique card that would remove any number of cards from your ring area and end your opponent's turn. When this card's in your ring area, if an effect your opponent controls to move any number of cards from your ring area, opponent must discard one card for each card removed. And as you'll see, Back by Vicky is not permanent. So if they play their own Simply the Best, or if they play Drop Toe Hold or Gut Punch Throwback or anything that has ring removal, I play Ref Got in the Way and it reverses it. And I think in the long run, that'll be more helpful than a Dirty Low Blow that I might not ever play. So Ref Got in the Way is going to go in. Let's take a quick look at other mid-match cards. I can't think of anything that I would add, but we're just going to take a quick gander because I think the deck is more or less complete. We don't really need Fortitude Surge because we're going to have Frankie Takes Hollywood. A lot of these classic cards vary in strength. See How It Feels Throwback could be something just because it's another trademark finisher and we already have a couple, but I don't see me cutting any of my other mid-match cards for it. Yeah, I can't think of anything else that I want to add. I don't have a shoot. Shoot would be another good way to go with the with Carlito and Primo, just because they can guarantee a shoot move in their ring. And then that sets you up for shoot counter, which hits a lot of really good cards. Overrated Superstar is another good card. But again, it's a card that you might not ever play, and I don't want to cut any of my other stuff for it. Old School Brawl is really good. I don't necessarily... Well, I guess AJ Lee can sometimes lean into cheese builds. Rose Brothers don't really have that much synergy, but cheese is cheese, I guess. What could I take out for Old School Brawl? I don't want to take out Ref Got in the Way. I don't want to take out Break It Out. I don't want to take out Unscrupulous. I don't want to take out Reach. Sustained is really good. Outside Interference is really good. I might just not be able to use it, to be totally honest. I'm not going to have buying myself some time because I anticipate having a pretty large hand. So the hand's printed 0, remember. So we'll have +1/+1 for 2, 3. This lets us draw a card 4. This lets us draw a card 5. This lets us draw a card 6. This lets us draw 6 and bury 2. So that puts us at essentially 10. 11, 12. So we'll have about 12 cards for our first turn, which is pretty good. And none of his people can pack Armageddon is upon us, so I don't have to worry about that. Anyway, they're not as stable, so I can't run Flurry. I think we're done. Yeah, we're done. This is the deck that we're going to use. For better or worse, this is it. Carlito and Primo, we will see how you do. Thank you, everyone. I know it's been quite a long time, but life has calmed down over the last couple of months. So I plan on doing one of these for every round, and I will release this video after I play. So at the start of the next video, I'll let you know how this deck ended up doing. Thank you, guys. And if you are in the BWO, I wish you the best of luck, unless you're playing against me, of course. And, let's have some fun this tournament. Thanks, guys.